What's good, everyone? This is Justin Just Rock Ramon from the Just Rock Podcast, where elevation is our recreation. Super excited for you to check out our next episode as it features an incredible guest who goes by the name Jaclyn Cosgrove, pronouns they and them. Jaclyn is an LA-based trekker by way of Oklahoma, an outdoor reporter for the LA Times, and staff writer for the beloved outdoor newsletter, The Wild. What makes this conversation so special is that we got the unique perspective of an accomplished journalist and outdoor reporter from one of the most prominent and influential newspapers in the United States. We chatted about Jaclyn's first hiking memories, their emotions towards the historic LA fire crisis, the impact of the national park mass firings and park protests, outdoor survival stories, how Jaclyn's brother's passing became a major catalyst in the hiking journey, exploring Southern California through the Six Pack of Peaks Challenge, and the LA Times deep history of covering hiking culture. We also chatted about Jaclyn's top trails in Southern California, hiking hacks and outdoor tips, desiring to explore more of the majestic Backbone Trail in the Santa Monica Mountains, joy and inclusivity in the great outdoors, and the one outdoor experience they would relive all over again. In addition to this YouTube video version you're watching right now, we have audio versions available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and on all the other major streaming platforms. You can find those links in the description. All right, let's get to trekking and get into this episode. All right, y'all, we are back at it, back outdoors, out here in Debs Park, just northeast of downtown LA. And I'm with a very special guest who is deeply connected to the community out here, the outdoor community in LA and Southern California. I'm here with Jaclyn Cosgrove, fellow Angelino, or shall I say Angelina, by way of Oklahoma, a SoCal trekker, outdoor reporter, outdoor wordsmith, representing the iconic LA Times. And I'm just so excited to say, welcome to the Just Rock Podcast, Jaclyn.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. I'm just amazed at the community that you have built, through Just Trek. It's really cool and a lot of really hard work that people don't see going behind the scenes. It's just the level of community you've built is really impressive.
Thank you. That really means a lot. We're actually celebrating the 5-year anniversary of the Just Right podcast at the end of March.
That's so cool.
March 31st. I actually launched it on my birthday 5 years ago.
Wow, that's really cool. I mean, and the cool thing about you is it's just really authentic. You know,
that means a lot.
That's why I wanted to come on, is because you are a responsible storyteller in this space and really respectful. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't come from a radio background or journalism. I just poured my heart and soul into a new endeavor, and to be able to bring guests such as yourself on is oh wow, I'm doing it. I'm really leaning into this new purpose of amplifying voices in the outdoor space, people that are really grounded into Mother Earth, Mother Nature. So it's an honor to have you on the podcast. And just want to ask you, how are you doing today, and how are you liking our podcast studio setting?
I am doing okay. I know that, our friends on the internet can't see it, but there is a falconry class happening that we were both surprised to see, and that's what that whistle is, if the audio picks it up. And I'm here with my doggo, Maggie May, who will be hanging out. She's almost 12, survived ass cancer, and is doing great. So, and she's done Mount Baldy. So, yeah, but day's going well. I mean, well enough. I'm just happy to be here. And as I told you earlier, this is my first time at Debs Park.
We've just seen a sliver of it, obviously, but first impressions of this part of the park. I mean, we already have so much going on, from the ravens chirping at the hawks and this workshop class going on over here.
Yeah, no, it's really beautiful. I mean, I am just always amazed. I am from Oklahoma, and that's where I grew up, spent the first 29 and a half years of my life. My wife and I moved here about 7.5 years ago. But I'm just, obviously it could be better, obviously it could be more, but I'm amazed at how much public land we have in California and how well maintained a lot of it is. I'm just amazed when I find a flush toilet in in a public park. It's
Sure.
just fantastic. And when it's clean, which does happen more often than not. And yeah, we're just really lucky to have so many just cool parks, big and small. So I'm real happy to finally be at this one.
And after this conversation, if you got some time, I was telling you earlier that there is a gem of a lake here in Debs Park. It's called Debs Pond, aka Peanut Lake. It's known for all the turtles that reside in it. And apparently, if you are maybe flying above it, if you look high enough, it's called Peanuts Lake because it's in the shape of a peanut.
What?
I've yet to verify that. I haven't really looked at it like that, but it's only a 10-minute trek from where we're recording. So would love to bring you there if you got some time.
I have time. That sounds awesome.
And I'm sure Maggie May, our third wheel
Yes.
podcast
Yes,
guest, is going to
yes.
join us too.
Yeah, she will. I will try to keep her out of the pond.
Maggie May wants to get in front and hug the spotlight. She's more than welcome to.
Yeah, she's probably just gonna have a nice nap.
So, what a time to be an Angelino. Not only an Angelino, but an outdoor recreationist, a park lover, and there's so much I want to chat with you about. But the first topic that I just want to get right into is what happened last month. The historic LA fire crisis that ravaged our city, ravaged us, ravaged the trails. It's just been so heartbreaking on so many levels because it's urban communities
Yeah.
were decimated. This wasn't just like a wildfire out on the edges of the canyons burning a few homes. This was something of historic magnitude. When that happened, the Palisades fire and the Eden fire, which I'm primarily referring to, beginning of January, I really just felt it was so unfair because I feel like we were still dealing with the aftermath of the Franklin fire back in December, which ravaged like the eastern parts of Malibu, even like burned up into right next to the Pepperdine University campus. And then 3 months prior to that, I think it was in September, we dealt with a trifecta
Yep.
of wildfires. I hope I get this right, the Line Fire, San Bernardino National Forest, the airport fire in Orange County, and then we had the Bridge Fire,
Yep.
which was burning right through our majestic East Fork, San Gabriel River, and our beloved Angeles National Forest, San Gabriel Mountains. So all that being said, just would love to know your current thoughts and emotions towards the LA fire crisis that we've experienced at the beginning of January and that continues to affect a lot of us.
So, as I said, my wife and I, we moved here in 2017, and then we got here in May, and then I started at the LA Times in November, and right away I started covering wildfire, and that was brand new to me. We do not, or at least we didn't, have destructive wildfire in Oklahoma generally. Especially, I grew up in eastern Oklahoma, so that's like a very lush, green, hilly part of the state. Their problem is often like flooding. So, like for example, when you go camping in an Oklahoma State park, you can leave your fire going all night. It's actually encouraged. Like when I took a camping course at a state park, and they're like, "Yeah, just leave your fire going, and that way in the morning you have hot coals." And and then I get here, and it's like, douse your fire, and I'm like dousing other
Immediately.
people's fires. So I did not grow up with wildfire. My dad was a volunteer firefighter for like 25 years, and I did go on to 2 fires with him, but they were never like what happens here. So I get here, and right away I cover the Thomas Fire, which was over in Ventura. It was massive. That was like in 2017, I believe. And that was like the first time I stayed up for like 25 hours covering a fire, just fueled by like adrenaline.
That's intense.
It was crazy. I like went to sleep in my car and ended up hallucinating that, and it's a long story. But anyway, don't breathe wildfire smoke. And then after that, kept on covering fires. Covered the Cranston Fire, which burned near Hemet and Idlewild. I covered another fire that was up by Yosemite, and it actually closed Yosemite, not because of the fire, but because of smoke. And so the first time I ever went to Yosemite, it was empty. And I was actually like, because it wasn't, there were very small communities that were threatened, but for the most part, the fire was burning through forest like we're used to, and CAL FIRE was actually using it as like a way to do some healthy fire and back burning. But yeah, first time I'm in Yosemite, it's just a little bit smoky, and I'm going through the valley, with just like the spokesperson and the LA Times photographer, and we're just driving around looking for a bear because I was like I had this whole idea of what the story was going to be like about the animals getting up to like shenanigans. So all that to say, like, I've covered a lot of wildfire, covered the Woolsey fire that was so damaging, did a big investigation for the LA Times about the ill-prepared response to that fire, and how it was allowed to grow in the way that it did and how that could have been stopped. I was used to wildfire, but I just remain, and I know we all remain, just shocked at just how many people lost their homes, how many lives were lost in the Palisades and the Eaton fire. I've subscribed to Edgar McGregor's Patreon for a long time. He's a climatologist who specifically focuses on San Gabriel Valley, which is really helpful if you're a hiker, because he gets into all the details about what's going to happen. And we've all been on a hike where it wasn't supposed to be hot, and then it's really hot. Not since I started following Edgar. And he puts out this alert that's like life-threatening wildfire in Eaton Canyon.
I saw that.
And I'm just like, I said a lot of words. And immediately send it to like our breaking news crew. And I'm like, this is bad, because it was just the wind was starting to pick up. And I live in the San Gabriel Valley, and I looked out my window and kind of turned my head a little bit on the second floor, and I was like, it just looked like lava on the mountain, And I'd never like thought about myself as living close to Eaton Canyon. Like I can't walk to it. It's about 6 miles as the crow flies. And I was just like, this is bad. And I was talking to one of my dear friends who, she and her husband live in Altadena, and I was like, you guys gotta go. Like, we were just like, she was like, yeah, her husband was trying to like ascertain what was happening, and I was like, well, it is moving east. And the weird thing about that fire was it moved east and west, because usually you can kind of track it, right? Mm-hmm. To know how that happened, that's, my friends in like news are, analyzing that sort of thing. But anyway, all that to say, I just remain shocked at just how decimated Altadena was. And, I think I'm in the camp of people who hope that people have the time and money and resources and support to be able to build back in a way that is more resistant to wildfire, like homes that are more
defensible.
Yeah, defensible, but then also like with climate change worsening, living in Altadena is only going to get hotter. And so also like set up in a way where you're not paying like a $400 utility bill, what can we do? So I know that there's a really hard conversation happening among residents of like people who want to rebuild exactly as it was and people who want to rebuild in a way that's more resistant. So and then for the Palisades, it's like another damaging, heartbreaking fire, and I mean, there was Woolsey, and then I feel like there's so much work that's been done to recover from Woolsey, right? And now it's just
It's too much.
Yeah, and now it's just a lot of that work was burned up, and a lot of people were working on trails in Angeles from the Bobcat fire, right? But the Bobcat fire, I feel like, is such a blip in our minds. It was huge, but it's not really that
was the one that was affected Chantry Flats, and Chantry Flats just reopened, right? And now they kind of closed, and I think they're open again now as we speak.
Chantry Flats Recreation Area, which is managed by the U.S. Forest Service, I have to get that name right, that is open. But the road, which is L.A. County, is closed. And so it's technically open, but you can't get to it. But I don't know if they've reopened it. I've been a little distracted with our recent political state and related to the parks. But yeah, someone emailed me and was like, can you please do something about what trails are open? Because we don't want people on burned trails. We don't want people in closed areas, which I'm happy to get into, about why. Because I know people love these spaces. I say out there is like my church, like it's a sanctuary for a lot of us. It's a huge part of our mental health to be out there. But we also have to like respect the land. And so I do plan to write more about like, here are the places to explore that are open and maybe you haven't been there before, because we still do have a lot of public land that is available.
Yeah, there's so much still out there that wasn't burned, but so much was burned. Was there any particular trails where you found out that it was scorched to the ground, that it just really like hurt you in the soul? That you're like, oh, not that one.
Yeah, so one of the assignments I now regularly do as an outdoors journalist, I was a news reporter for the majority of my career. I've been technically a journalist since I was 17, and
Wow.
for just under 20 years of that, I was a news reporter. So this features journalism space is new to me, outdoors, and so but I do love my job. But one of the things I'm doing now is I go in and I figure out what trails were burned. Some people will like post online like trail closures, but I myself love details and data, and so I go into Caltopo, which is like a mapping software, and you can like draw a line along the trail and follow it, and so I will do that to see just precisely how much of a trail burned. I also just feel like if you think your favorite trail was destroyed and I tell you that only half a mile of it was burned, hopefully that will give you a little bit of hope that your favorite place is okay-ish, you know? And so for me, part of that was Millard Canyon, because I was just like, oh, please, 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 because that's one of my like go-tos. I love like the Tom Sloan Trail. It's just such an easy place to get to, and I love how you take like the Mount Low, it's like maybe the Tollway or something is what it's called, and you're on pavement for like 2 seconds, and then you dip down into like Millard Canyon, and it's just lush and beautiful, and there's all these huge rocks, and there's Millard Creek, and so I often would hike where you're above Millard Falls. I didn't actually go to Millard
Ooh,
Falls as much
okay.
because it's very popular. This was less popular, and you could go to like Dawn Mine, which is this like mine that you should not go inside. But if you put your head next to it, it feels like, I call it like mountain air conditioning, because it's very cold air coming out
Oh,
of it.
that's great. I love
Yeah,
that.
and I just love that area. Like we go there all the time because it's close. It's got water. I have a black lab, so she needs to be swimming, and so that was not totally destroyed. Like a little bit of it was burned. Eaton Canyon. I mean, gosh, when I went out there after the fire, and it's just like a moonscape. Thankfully, the big oak trees for the most part
They're
survived.
still there because they're
you know.
fire resistant.
Yeah, and it's just amazing. But because I was talking to a biologist who works for the county, and she was telling me that if those had died, then I mean it would be a totally different story. But you have these really big trees that made it, and so that's sort of the story of hope, if you can have one. Is that even though like a lot of the chaparral did burn, there is hope still there with those big trees surviving. So yeah, I mean, I personally like really love hiking over by Bridge to Nowhere, and I've just been like bummed since September because I love that river, because now people are going to the East Fork and the West Fork and now the North Fork, and I love them all, and I'm especially in the summer, with me and Maggie, like I'm always looking for places that have water, so it's hard. I mean, a lot of our, I'm just glad that Ice House Canyon is open.
Yes, it's. I was just there. I mentioned to you last weekend. I did Ice House Canyon, the Ice House Saddle, the Timber Mountain. A bit of it was a snow trek, and definitely Ice House Canyon is one of the most majestic sections of the Angeles National Forest, hands
Yes.
down.
And we actually get like fall colors there,
Correct. Yeah.
Although if LA hadn't ripped out all of its native plants and hadn't grown stuff like this pepper tree behind us, which if you see a pepper tree, there's probably been some colonization that's happened.
Absolutely.
But if we'd left more of our native trees, we'd actually have more fall foliage in LA, just as an aside. So.
Yeah, it's the pepper trees, non-native, the eucalyptus
Yep.
trees, the palm trees. They're so flammable. There's
Yep.
been so much obviously talk about replanting our native shrubs,
Yep.
native plants. Like we just mentioned, the oak trees are pretty much fire resistant, but a lot of this brushland in Southern California has been burned so quickly over and over again that they're not able to grow back
Yeah.
in time, for the rest of these other fires. To go back to Eaton Canyon, it's just so wild that that trail, like in the nature center, like you could argue that's the most popular trail in LA County.
Easily.
Like,
Easily.
like just to give context to the audience, everyone tuning in right now, like Los Angeles County lost iconic trails after
Yes.
iconic trail.
Yes.
I live in Culver City, so my backyard is the Palisades. My immediate escape is going to Temescal Canyon, Los Leones, Parker Mesa Overlook, and I know
Yeah.
you live in the San Gabriel Valley, very close to Eaton Canyon,
Yep.
Millard Falls, Echo Mountain, Inspiration Point, and all these places like are scorched, or like a majority of it is.
Yeah.
And you wrote something in a previous The Wild newsletter, which we're going to get into all your wondrous work with the LA Times and that dedicated outdoor newsletter. And you wrote something in the very beginning, I think it was maybe like 2 or 3 issues ago, and I really appreciated it. And what you were acknowledging was you were saying, like, yes, this fire, the Eaton Palisades fire, affected people's livelihoods. Like, people lost generational homes. People also died. There's a certain amount of people.
Yeah.
But then you were acknowledging how, like, how some people may view, like, oh, you lost your favorite trail, that's nothing compared to like someone losing their house.
Yeah.
Which is, I get that perspective, but the way you explained it, I really appreciate it, because you're saying these aren't just like trails, these are like places we heal.
Yep.
These are our sanctuaries. These are places where we rebuild ourselves back up.
Yep.
We learn to love ourselves again, to improve our mental health. So I just wanted to say I really appreciated how you worded that, and like that was like a dedication to all like the outdoor enthusiasts that recreate on all these trails that got burned down. These aren't just places we simply exercise at.
Yep.
This is literally like our church.
Yeah. No, it's not just for the gram.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I mean, I like to practice, like, you know, I'm a non-binary person, and I like to practice non-binary journalism. And especially after I went to law school, my friends and family are probably all tired of hearing me say it, but 2 things can be true at once. And it's like loss of life in any fire, whether it's a resident firefighter, it's tragic, you know, and I've written those stories, many of them. And loss of homes is tragic. Again, I've written a lot of those stories. It's, you know, I was all over like a Bell Canyon whenever the Woolsey fire happened, mostly unaware that any celebrities lived there. Was like, why is security so tight? Didn't know like Shaq's house was around, or like Britney Spears lived there at one point. Anyway, I think, but yeah, it's like, let's let multiple things be true at once. And people are so fast to go online and make these hot takes and try to write the, hey, come here.
Hot takes, and Maggie May barks.
She's very protective once she's in a space. So, hey, that bathroom does not belong to you. But yeah, people are so quick to make hot takes and say the thing that's going to get, you know, reshared over and over. And I was pretty quiet after the Eaton and Palisades fires, because I was like, I'm not trying to do that, you know, like I just want to watch, I just want to listen, I want to learn, you know, I'm not trying to get, I have it in like my, you know, social media bios that like I'm very offline but very outside, because I just lately have been really burned out of social media. I love the community, but anyway, the point is, let's let multiple things be true at once, you know? And so that was what I was just trying to do, was just hold space for the fact that this is sad on so many levels. And for a lot of people, like my friends that I mentioned who live in Altadena, like they have people all around them who died in their neighborhood. They lost their home, the ones I was talking about evacuating. Thank God they evacuated. They also are avid hikers and were all throughout those mountains. That's why they lived in Altadena. So they lost all 3, you know? And so it's like, let's not try to like have this competition or try to like, let's just listen, and let's just all just listen, you
Listen
know?
and preserve, yeah.
2025, if you can do one thing, if you just listen more, and assume positive intent, you know, like it'll make your life so much better. So yeah, I was just trying to get at the fact that these places are so special, and it's rare for me to talk to someone who is a hiker and isn't out there for mental health reasons, isn't out there like myself for like grief reasons, which I'm happy to get into. Like, it is our happy place in such a deep and meaningful way. And so to see it destroyed over and over again, sure, we can like yank on the thread of like resilience and regrowing and rebirth and whatever, but like we can also just sit and be sad, you know? So that's what I was trying to say.
No, that really stood out to me, and I was like, I loved how you articulated that.
Thank you.
And just to say this, it was just so shocking because, you know, the start of this LA fire crisis was Tuesday, January 7th. It was literally the first full business week of the new year, and I was just like, you know, when something so devastating happens or so sad, you just make a joke. I was just like, well, happy 2025 to us.
Yeah.
Fuck us. You know?
Yep, yeah. No, I mean, it was just like everyone kept saying like January is the longest year ever, you know, because things just kept happening, you know. We like ended the month with like a tragic plane crash in Philadelphia, and I was just like, really? Like, okay, like it's just, universe, we would love a break whenever you would like to offer it to us.
We could use the rain. We could use many breaks right now, and yeah, just other news happening is just
Yes.
like news on top of news on top of news. And you know, you've been reporting on these kind of disasters, especially wildfires, and amongst other disaster-related news. Like, you know, reporting on these things are very emotionally taxing. Like, how have you been coping and managing your mental and emotional well-being through all this?
Yeah, no, you know, when I'm doing like those closed trails lists, you know, it just looks like a list to the reader, right? But that is me like zooming in as far as the map will let me go to get to like the absolute point where the trail is closed. And then I'm like, it's in my mind, I'm going like, here's all this that burned, you know, and then I'm thinking about all that burned. So it's my least favorite assignment to do because it's really draining because I am like intimately familiar with what burned. Now I don't know the magnitude of what burned, you know, I make that very clear in those pieces, but I do know that it burned, and I worry for the animals, and I just worry for all of it, you know. So I have a good therapist. I have an amazing wife.
Shout outs to wifey.
Yes, yes. I have a really sweet dog who hopefully behaves right now. 2 cats. She's a bona fide cat herder.
Nice.
And then, you know, my boss is also very supportive of mental health days. And, you know, she's also really understanding that that's hard to do. Like, again, it looks like just a list, but there's so much work that goes into it. And she's been very forgiving of how much time it takes because, you know, she knows, my boss, Alyssa, she knows that it's hard. It's hard too. She's sad too. She's also a hiker. And so, so yeah, it's always so bleak. And then also just getting back outside, you know, whenever the air clears. I mean, I was like, let's go. One of my good friends, they were celebrating their birthday in Palm Springs and invited a group of us to go. And it was just so nice to go to Mount San Jacinto, up the tram, which is like its own adventure.
That gondola, that aerial tram is quite the ride.
Yeah, especially Tower 3. That's the big one where you're like, whoa, and it's a roller coaster.
And they play music.
Yeah, they
it's
play
like a
music.
whole party vibe.
Yes, yeah. And they played music like all like going up and flying themed was what our vibe going down was. But one was I Will Survive, which was very on the nose.
Who's ever curating that playlist is they need a promotion.
A plus. Yes, exactly. Or just unionize your workplace.
There you go.
But yeah, that was really it. Just you have to get back out there, you know, and that was what was so hard, right? About after the fires, is everyone was so concerned about air quality that it became hard to comprehend what we were actually at risk of having, you know, because there were then influencers got involved in like air quality, and you're like, can we just like listen to the science?
So much information coming from many different angles.
Right, but then at the same time, it's like, can we trust what different, especially federal governmental bodies are telling us? Like, we know that there was conflicting information when different administrations switched about like COVID. So anyway, I'm just glad we can sit here outside and breathe the air. But yeah, no, mental health and therapy and support groups are crucial, absolutely. And you know, I really do think actually that as climate change worsens, I hope it doesn't, but let's be real, as climate change worsens, you're probably going to see more like climate support groups, you know, as we sort of process this, what happens to our planet like every day. Yeah, I think that that's going to be something that we all really have to talk about openly, because there's that feeling of I'm doing as much as I can. Like, I'm a vegan who drives an electric car, and like I'm really trying. And I'm sure some people just rolled their eyes, but like I'm really trying for me.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
I don't care if you're eating a steak in a truck, but like I just, yeah, there's just that feeling of helplessness as well. Like being involved, obviously, as a journalist, writing about it, but then at the end of the day, you're also like, I can only do so much as an individual.
I'm glad that you have your support squad
Yes,
and
yes.
that you are finding time to go outside to improve your mental health and just cope with everything. You know, what a wonderful place to reset, Mount San Jacinto Wilderness. I got to tell you, that is one of the most wondrous mountain ranges. It is a desert alpine peak, a rarity in the world. You know, you got Mount San Jacinto Peak that's like, or San Jacinto Peak that's like a 10,000, like 900 or something like that, almost 11,000. It's like a microcosm of Yosemite whenever I go out there. Like, that's a truly special place. That's a place I won't mind driving 2 hours to
Yeah.
explore and take the tram up, or if I want to suffer, do cactus, the clouds.
I've never done that, but it's on my list.
Oh, let's
So,
do it.
yes, Sufferfest.
Summerfest, it's yeah, I think you can do it in May or you can do it in the fall. Definitely, obviously, avoid the summer.
Yes. Oh, and one other thing, I also I have a really supportive church community. I go to a Unitarian Universalist church, and our church is organized, like its liturgical calendar is organized by the season. So it's like climate change and climate justice is like very baked into how the church operates. And that's just such a great community. There's so many like queer people there, especially trans people, and so and it's a place where I start my week with hope. And it's not hope that's like it's authentic hope, you know, like it's hope with your eyes open, you know. It's not ignoring what's going on. It's very much, you know, because like joy is an act of resistance, right, especially
Absolutely, yeah.
now. And so yeah, that's been a really important thing for me, is just a place to have, just take time, slow down, meditate, and sing some songs. I'm also in the choir.
Yeah, these were definitely these trying times where we had to lean into our support groups, different community groups, and just heal.
Yeah, absolutely.
To go back to the fires, did we ever find out more of the root cause of the Eaton fire and the Palisades fire? Because I know you're like constantly doing research, I assume, with a lot of your colleagues. Do we have more information on that?
I don't know if the cause has been determined, honestly, because as I mentioned, I am in features now, and so, but I feel like the latest headlines were focusing on this one area of electrical lines for the Eaton fire, related to Edison, and you know, we both know that that's going to be a long process. I think there was even a headline recently about the Woolsey fire, and
That one broke my heart. That burned down my favorite trail of all time, Sandstone Peak.
wow.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that got to, I mean, it burned it burned all of Santa Monica Mountains, right?
It was massive. That was
Yeah.
like, I felt literally depressed. It's like that concept I learned from Modern Hiker, place attachment to these trails that you have like core memories on, you know?
Yeah. Well, and you were saying like you started a lot of this in 2017, so you were just falling in love with this place. And
Correct, yes.
That's got to be that's probably, I'm guessing that was the first fire that broke your heart, you know?
Shattered my soul.
Yeah, I'd say Bobcat, you know, Bobcat, and then the bridge fire too, because like I really love doing Mount Baden Powell. It's such a sufferfest, and those 40 switchbacks.
Don't count them.
Do not count them. That's not the way to be present in nature. But yeah, I'll be honest, I don't know exactly the information about the cause, but I want to say what I was saying about Woolsey was. I want to say there was a headline pretty recently about Edison pushing back about their line being the start of that too, maybe. It feels familiar. So, and that was in 2018. So this is always such a long, drawn out process of cause and then the lawsuits and everything like that.
Yeah, I do remember that they're saying there's tons of lawsuits against SoCal Edison, and then the Palisades one is a very interesting theory. I think I remember it was like,
Oh, it was at Skull Rock. They were worried that somebody started an illegal campfire or something. That's right. Because those guys were out trail running.
there's a group.
Yeah, and they people were like, it was you, and they like attacked them.
I remember that clip went viral.
It did, and they were just like running for their lives, and the internet was like, must have been you. well, some factions of the internet. Yeah, no, that one, I think people are wondering if it was like an illegal campfire situation.
That one was so trippy because Skull Rock and Temescal Canyon, that's the hike I've done the most in my journey. That
Wow.
and Los Leones.
Wow.
So to see like this clip on CNN and all the news outlets, I was like, are they at Skull Rock? And they're like running around trail running. And then what was so fascinating was when I was doing more research, so apparently on New Year's Day, there was a fire in that exact same area next to Skull Rock.
Right, yes.
And they put it out like within like hours. But the theory they're saying is that a fire can still smolder underground
Yeah.
for maybe a few days or several days, and that because of the Santa Ana hurricane force winds that were like 80
Oh, yeah.
miles an hour, they were
Yeah.
saying that what may have happened is the winds went over that same footprint where the fire may have been smoldering and reignited it. And I was like, it's like if that's true, what in the world? Like that's wild.
Well, you know, because people don't realize with containment, that doesn't mean out, you know? And
Yes.
so, like, I one time went up to Modoc County, which is the farthest northeast you can get in California. And I think, almost certain, but Modoc County only has one incorporated city, Alturas. But in I was in that forest and they had a fire and there were still logs like smoldering, but they weren't causing any threat because they were in this huge burned area. So, yeah, just because I mean, obviously now that we've had so much rain, that's not the case most likely with ours. But yeah, if you have a big fire and then it's 100% contained, if it killed big old trees, then those things are going to smolder for a long time. I just was reading an archive story because I'm doing this outdoor series called Between a Rock, which we can get into, and this one that's going to publish in the next few days is about this couple that was hiking, and they'd heard that a fire was in the area, but they thought it was far and small, which it was, but then it jumped the containment line.
Ooh.
Because they had strong winds. So yeah, they weren't actually being irresponsible. It was just this freak thing that happened.
The winds were the massive X factor. You said that series is called Between a Rock?
Between a Rock, yeah, like Between a Rock and a Hard Place. So we launched it in November. I am obsessed with outdoor survival stories, and emphasis on survival. Like, I'm not listening to the podcasts that are like, here are the places in the parks where people have been murdered. Like, you can have that genre. I'm not going to listen to that because I'm going to be sitting in my tent, like thinking about like, oh, was that a deer or was that a serial killer? So I don't need that, but I do like survival stories. There was this really fantastic podcast from Backpacker Magazine called Out Alive. People should go listen to it. It was super well done. And what I loved about it is the name, Out Alive. You knew people were going to get out alive. But there's all these stories. Like there's one where these pilots in training, they lived in Hawaii and they were flying this, like, it sounds like crappy old test plane just to get in some hours, and it crashed. And these two people who had just met were in the ocean and they were like, this is a big problem when you get lost, right? That the rescuers can't see you. That's why I always got bright colors on. And but that's a big problem in multiple of the episodes in Out Alive. But these people had to swim back to the island they were closest to, and so they swam. It was like hours. They swam through jellyfish. At one point, a shark was around.
What in the world?
And like I could only get through it because I'm like, they're both telling the story, which means they live. And eventually, they were noticed by this like military team that was out looking. But I learned so much from it, especially the issue of like the rescuers cannot see you if you do not have something bright on. There was another story of some hunters in Alaska who were in camouflage, and so the rescuers could not see them. So I wanted to do something similar at the LA Times. So we put out a call out for outdoor survival stories, and I know you submitted one.
I submitted one.
Hopefully we'll be able to use.
Cross my fingers.
Yeah, no, I'm very interested. And so and I saw different themes. Like we got a few people who had interactions with mountain lions, which is so rare. More people interactions with bears, including these one hikers who They unfortunately climbed a tree to try to get away from a bear, not realizing that the babies were above them.
Oh no, that is
So
the
you
worst
have the mama
place.
bear on the ground, and then they're trying to be like, go away, and she's just like, you're between me and my babies. Like, it could not have gone worse. They lived, thank God. But that'll be another one that we publish. This most recent one was about a wildfire. And the goal is just to learn. You know, it's not to judge these people. I've been a little frustrated with the comment section because people have been kind of judgy.
Comments are always wild
Yeah.
and
And, like,
frustrating.
yes, and these people are being like vulnerable with their stories, right? And so for me, I want to learn from them. I was reading Pacific Crest Trail Association has this incredible, like very lengthy what to do if you're out hiking and there's a wildfire. I recommend people go look that up, or you could put it in the show notes. Really comprehensive about like how to build a shelter and all this different stuff. So I linked to that in the article, but I just want to learn, you know. And so yeah, it's we've done, this will be our third installment. We're doing them, trying to do them once a month, and it's been a lot of fun. And people are welcome to submit their outdoor survival stories.
And where can they submit it? Can people still submit right now?
Yeah, they can.
Okay.
If they look for this series, or like under my byline, we always link to it. But yes, you can still submit, and I will review your submission and tag it as various. Yeah, one of the tags I use is lesson in humility, which we've all been there.
The mountains will humble you at some point. God knows I've been through a bunch, and I'm sure you got your handful of
Sure
stories.
have. One time I got lost on a trail I'd been to so many times.
Oh, one of those stories.
Oh my God, it was terrible. The worst 15 minutes ever.
Did a big cloud come through, or just like white out the area?
There'd been a lot of rain, and so the path that was not super clear. And so I was just walking in this wide area, and then I was just like, what is it they say you're supposed to do when you're lost? And Maggie was being so patient. She was just like, this is fun. We're just kind of walking in circles. But yeah, we got out alive. So
It's very interesting how it's the trail sometimes that we're the most familiar with, that we find ourselves in a spicy moment.
yes.
I've had like 2 or 3 of those, and I'm just like, how did this happen?
Yes.
But that's like when we also let our guard down, when we're very familiar with
Yep.
a trail, even if it's local, and maybe we didn't pack that one thing because we know this is like a place that we're very familiar with. We didn't pack that emergency aid kit. We didn't bring that ibuprofen. We didn't bring that hiking pole. We're like, I'll be fine.
We didn't realize that when we switched iPhones, we hadn't downloaded the map. So got out there and was like, thankfully I was able to look at my Garmin. I generally always hike with a satellite communicator. So that helped a lot. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, day hikes are when we get in trouble. You know, backpackers they know they're on their own. You know, it's the day hikes that always get you. That's what I've talked to outdoor survival experts, and they have said it's always the day hikes.
And those day hikes to Mount Baldy in the wintertime, our beloved Mount Baldy, they say top 3 deadliest mountains in the country in the wintertime specifically.
Yeah. I used to joke that I was the patron saint of 25-year-old men because I always end up helping them on the trail, either with like love advice. That's happened multiple times.
25-year-old men specifically.
It's just around that age. And it's a hard age, okay? Your 20s are terrible. Trust me, your 30s are better.
They are.
So much better. Yeah, no, I ended up, I'm solo hiking a lot with Maggie, and as I was telling you, she loves men, and so I ended up hiking with these young guys because they're solo hiking too, and they either ask me like questions about women that they're interested in. That's been happening multiple times, which is fine. I welcome it. Or they're not prepared. So like one time my friend and I were going up to Mount Wilson, and her husband was going to pick us up at the parking lot because I was like, there's no need to hike back down when there's a parking lot at the top, because we wanted to get started later in the day. Well, he was coming up behind us and planning to come down, and he did not have a headlamp. And I was like, honey, I'm doing this for your mother because she loves you.
Yes.
You are not hiking down without a headlamp. So I gave him mine. But then another time, me and Mags were hiking Strawberry Peak, which I really enjoy hiking in the winter because that is a hot peak in the summer.
is.
And it was like raining, like a perfect little drizzle, which like she's very happy about. And I was all geared up and everything. Well, these 3 guys were all in cotton. And
Oh, great.
yeah.
Retain all the moisture.
Yeah, so as we know, cotton kills. And I went up to them and I was like, when we were both starting, and I was like, hey, I have some hot hands. Like, do you guys want those? Because, you know, you're in cotton and you might get, and they're like, no, we're good. And I was like, okay. And didn't push it. And we get up to the top, me and Mags, we'd taken our time, and they're up there, and one of them's like, you got those hot hands.
Of course. Like,
and I
I
was
should have
like,
taken it.
yeah, and I was like, of course. And they were like, yeah, we're thinking about doing Mount Baldy next week. And I was like, don't do that. I was like, people die up there. There's a lot, and at the time there was a lot of snow. It was after we'd had all that amazing snow. And I was like, do not go up there, please. Like, there's so many other hikes to do that are safe. And they were like, really? People die? And I was like, I'm so upset with you right now.
You're like, you're just going down that rabbit hole of just don't go.
Yeah, just no. And so that's me on the trail a lot. And I love the trail culture. I love helping people. So I say patron saint, a 25-year-old man with lots of love. I want people to ask each other for help, you know, and that's the whole part of trail culture, right? Mm-hmm. So
I mean, it shows you care about their well-being, even though they're strangers. You know, it's because a lot of these people, it's their first time out on these high elevation peaks, and they may be physically fit, but maybe they don't have like the experience set of like what can happen out in the wilderness. You know, mountain weather changes really fast up above like 8,000, above 10,000 feet.
Sure does.
So to go back to you just curating this whole outdoor survival series, I think that's an amazing thing to put out there, because we have to learn from other people's lessons, so we hopefully don't find ourselves in these precarious, sketchy situations. Because if you hike enough, if you recreate in nature long enough, you will find yourself in a very similar situation. And if you listen to that podcast or read that article or internalize and made that deep mental note of what that other person did, that might save your life or other people.
Yep. Yeah, there was a guy who submitted that I haven't been able to reach yet, but he fell in a waterfall. And he remembered what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to like swim fight against it, which I need to give a Google. But it was amazing. Like, he had that recall of like what you should do in those situations. So yeah, I really hope just to help people. I think there's far more people reading it, enjoying it than the mean commenters. I mean, especially the weather. I mean, your submission, if you don't mind me sharing, was about like a sudden like thunderstorm, right?
San Gorgonio.
Yeah, and like that can really just happen, you know? And especially like, I'm in Oklahoma where like we take our weather very seriously, you know, because there's tornadoes, right? And so like our
part of that landscape.
Meteorologists, like we know their names, like everybody has their favorite, Travis Meyer. And you know, you follow them like you follow your preacher, basically, you know, like they're right there with each other. And I came here and I was like, oh, like nobody pays attention to weather because we don't really have it, you know? And so like one time I was hiking and like there were these huge clouds in the sky and I was coming down. It was over Mount Lukens and I wasn't doing the whole thing, but I was going through Haynes Canyon because I love that part because it can get snow, and then coming back on the other side, which gets a lot more sun. And so it's a really nice, like cooler, and then the warm side. And so I was just doing like the loop. I was not going to go up to Mount Lukens. It was me and her. And as I was going up, I was like telling people, I'm like, hey, it's about to storm. And they're like, really? Can you tell? And I was like, right there. It's just like, what's happening? I'm leaving and there's one hiker who's starting the hike and they're barefoot. And I was like,
wonderful. Grounding.
I was like, gotta go. You gotta go. And as I'm leaving, it starts like, it's not hail, but it's grackle. That's what you guys call it. It's like a mixture of like hail. It's kind of like a snowy mixture that's kind of like hail. It starts doing that as I'm like leaving. And I was just like, I told these Californians, they weren't in danger. They were just going to get wet.
No, for sure.
But yeah, it can happen where even when you're very prepared, especially if you're doing backpacking, you know, because the mountains change the weather. And so that's one thing I learned from following Edgar is it's harder to like forecast out too far because when the weather hits the mountains, things are gonna happen.
Yes.
So
it could be sunny skies, blue skies, sunshine, like just about that San Gorgonio survival story I sent to you. That was the forecast.
Yeah.
And the most like nightmarish thunderstorm came out of the blue, and I literally had that feeling like, you know, when your stomach drops all the way to the ground. I was like, uh-oh, like I might not get off this mountain.
Yeah.
And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, right. And that's for another time.
And we'll take that back. Maybe I might be featured on the LA Times
There you
by
go.
Jaclyn.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, no, I mean, we've all been there, and I just want to be more open and honest about it because we should. Like, it's okay, you know? That's going back to those binaries. It's not a wrong or the right or wrong way. It's just talking openly about this time I messed up, you know? So
Those stories are so important and crucial for the community to learn. That's there's strength in showing like your mistake or
Yep.
the scenario that put you in that.
yeah, and
So-
don't drink your own pee. That's
Yes, that is a
a big one.
big myth buster.
Yeah. Your kidneys already like went through it once.
Oh
Don't
my
make them do it
goodness.
again. Thank you, Bear Grylls.
All right, Jaclyn. So before we get into all your recent adventures and your work at the LA Times / The Wild, I do want to learn more about you and your outdoor journey and just dig deeper into that. So I want you to take us back.
Okay.
What was your first hiking memory?
In Oklahoma, well, I mean, I grew up on, my family has 300 acres. And so as a kid, I was just roaming around. And we have a river and lots of creeks on us. So it was me and my cousin just like playing in ponds and creeks and like just being like feral children as you do. So that's kind of part of it. But then in terms of hiking, when I was an adult, I started hiking in Oklahoma. My wife and I were living in Oklahoma City. And there's not a lot of public land in Oklahoma.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's one website that has like a list, and it says that Oklahoma is only like 5% public land, whereas California is about 50. And so, you know, we only have, I think, there's only like there's no national parks, and there's the Wichita Mountains Wildlife Refuge, which is federal land,
I've heard
and
about
great,
that.
fantastic. There's bison out there, it's really neat. But there's not a lot of federal land. There's wonderful state parks, but they're not as close in proximity as like what we have here in LA, with a few exceptions. And so I would go hiking in and around Oklahoma City as much as I could. But the minute we showed up here, I was just like, holy crap, look at these mountains, you know? And it really became really important for me. We moved here May 2017, and then my older brother Clinton.
Oh, May 2017?
Mm-hmm.
That's when my hiking journey, April 2017 is when my journey
Wow.
began. So we are connected really closely with
right
that.
there. Yeah, I was like flirting with hiking, but I got very serious about it after my older brother Clinton died of brain cancer in January of 2018. And it was something to watch someone die of something they had no control over that was like taking over his body. And I realized how I just felt very grateful to have a healthy body, you know? And so if you hike with me sometimes and it's really hard, you'll hear me yell like, we're so lucky to be here, because I mean that, you know, we're so lucky to be here. And so after that, I just really wanted to do like challenges in his honor. I've left like that across trail books mainly in the Angeles National Forest. You'll see it like where I just say like in loving memory of Jaclyn Cosgrove. And you may notice that I've scribbled because I have a really hard time remembering and writing down his death date, and especially after I've been hiking. But yeah, I started doing a 6-pack of peaks. I did that a few times, and that was in honor of him.
Was he a big hiker too?
No, I mean, I think he would have enjoyed like visiting out here, and he was like him and his wife were like always traveling. Like they went to so many cool places, and I think he would have if he'd had a chance to visit LA. I could have definitely persuaded him, especially like cool stuff like Mount Wilson and stuff, because he was an engineer, brilliant person. And so I would have like taken him on like space themed stuff and cool stuff
Mount Wilson's
like that.
perfect. Observatory.
Amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and then when he was supposed to turn 40 last year, I did 40 miles of hikes in January, which is when his birthday and death day are in January. So that's especially a time when I'm outside. So for me, it's just this like eternal gratitude that I'm healthy, you know, and just like loving myself. You know, I'm also non-binary and trans, especially after I had top surgery in like 2.5 years ago. That was when I really was like, I do really love my body, and I feel so lucky to have it and be the way that I am supposed to be, you know, because there's so many trans people who can't afford it or that surgeries have become inaccessible because of governmental bans. So I just feel super lucky to be in California, to be in LA, to feel safe here. And I just love it, you know, like, and I'm not shiny and rosy about LA. Like I'm very clear about
That's
the
why we go to the
issues.
mountains.
That's why we go. But like I always say, like I'm more comfortable being pissed off about LA's contradictions than I am about Oklahoma's, because Oklahoma's contradictions are dangerous to me, you know,
I see.
because there's, after the Oklahoma City bombing, not to get too far into the weeds, but after the Oklahoma City bombing, there became this phrase. Oklahoma said, we're the Oklahoma standard, which is when we help each other. And it's like, it doesn't feel currently like there's much of an Oklahoma standard, because everyone, a large majority of the people who've been elected in the Oklahoma legislature are deeply hateful, especially to queer people, especially to black and brown people. And so it doesn't feel like much of an Oklahoma standard these days. And, you know, I used to couch it as like, I actually bought one of my best friends a shirt to thank her for letting us stay with her recently when I had a family emergency, that said, Oklahoma, it's not that bad. It was the shirt. And like, we had a good laugh about it. And it was like, you know, but I'm like, one of my friends was like, she might cross that out because it's like, it's getting worse, you know, it's just getting more hateful. So all that to say, the mountains are just a place of deep relief for me, and very much like, you know, I'm not going to get preachy on people, but it's very much where I see God, you know, or the God I do believe in. And, you know, with me and Maggie, it's so much fun. You know, she's done, as I was saying, she's done Mount Baldy, which was a blast.
That's awesome.
Yeah, she was real popular up there. I have a hilarious picture where she's got like her paw on the sign, and like she looks like
really?
she's barking, like being like, this is my mountain. It's hilarious.
I love that plaque. It's really the only summit like with that kind of plaque.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, like, who had to hold that up there?
Very true.
But yeah, so anyway, I just love hiking with me and my dog, and sometimes a lot of times my friends come along, a lot of times they don't, but yeah, it's just I just fell in love with the mountains, and I feel very lucky to now be like a paid person whose job it is to hike as much as possible, you know?
So when you moved out here in May, you said 2017, and you noticed our surrounding mountains, and I love always bringing this up on different episodes. I think you're familiar, Mary Forgione, the former LA Times, the Wild editor. Like one of the most special phrases I always remember she said is that LA's greatest treasure is hidden in plain sight.
That's really good.
And what she's referring to, as you know, is if you're in downtown LA, what's the backdrop? The San Gabriel Mountains. If maybe you're in Hollywood, you have Griffith Park. For myself in West LA, I may be in Marina Del Rey or Venice Beach. It's the Santa Monica Mountains as the backdrop. But I never really truly, I would see it, but I didn't really see it. Like I didn't know you could go out there. So I bring that up to say, when you moved out here in May 2017, and you started getting into exploring the local trails and bagging these peaks, was there like a certain moment that like was it a friend that first brought you out there and showed you these trails, or was there a certain moment where like you began to realize like you being a SoCal trekker and bagging these peaks was going to become like a major part of your like lifestyle and identity moving forward? Or was it like a specific moment, or maybe a series of moments for you?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. You know, when we moved out here, we were living in Koreatown, which is the most densely populated neighborhood in Los Angeles.
Barbecue, baby.
And so, yeah, no, we loved living in Koreatown, especially coming from like very white Oklahoma, and to be in like such an incredibly diverse place, and diverse in every way, you know. But it was also like loud, you know, and so I really needed to get out, especially growing up in like a place that's, if you look at like the National Transportation Noise Map, like where I grew up is like quiet, and then like if you look at like the dark sky map, like where I grew up is very dark, you know. And so I was just very much used to like that joy of like just solitude, and then also just growing up on like a farm ranch. I'm a pretty like independent person. You know, we didn't have 911 when I grew up. They got it after I went to college, and so like my parents can call 911 finally. But so you just learn a lot about like taking care of yourself, and so I just kind of started going, and not, I didn't do anything like foolish, I went to Griffith, and I was like learning, and then I just kept reading and talking to colleagues. I really think it was doing my first round of 6-pack of Peaks, where I was just like, this is so much fun, like I just remember being in awe of how beautiful these different places were. Just laughing, like being on Mount Baden Powell, and like I said, just all the switchbacks.
Sounds like Baden Powell might be one of your favorite of the 6-pack.
I really do enjoy it. Like I was saying, I'm bummed it's closed, but I'm not going to do it. Yeah, and then Cucamonga, Ontario. I love Ice House Canyon. I'd go there any day of the week, especially on a weekday when the parking lot's open.
Oh, yeah. Bathe in the streams?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
If you like a good cold plunge?
Yeah, that's where you can do a cold plunge for sure. I've done it. There's a video of me going under one of the waterfalls and then screaming. But yeah, I really think that first 6-pack of Peaks, and the nice thing about what, Jeff has built with the 6-pack of Peaks is you get the hiking logs. Like that's why I signed up, is like, because I love the community, obviously, but I am kind of a solo hiker. And so I was doing it because it's better than like the different hiking apps reviews. Because sometimes people on the hiking reviews just say like, it's so beautiful and whatever. And they don't tell you you're going to have to jump over 4 logs that are down on the trail. But on 6-pack, like there are a lot of good hiking logs. And so that was really valuable to like see like, is there snow and ice? Is this going to be safe? And then to have like a nice, somewhat sense of safety and know what I'm going in for, know what I need to plan for. I learned a ton doing that. Now I'm lusting to get like more into the Sierras. I haven't spent a lot of time there.
Oh, Eastern Sierras.
Yeah, I'm dying to start checking out some of those alpine lakes. Yeah. Anyway, I hope I answered your question.
Lusting for Mount Whitney, lusting for Big Pine Lake.
I did, as usual, submit it in the lottery for Mount Whitney. So. I just did it. So, if you want to go do Mount Whitney, let me know.
Yeah, I've done it once as a day hike. I definitely need to return. I'm long overdue. I did it back in 2019.
I only submitted for overnight because
smart.
I'm just like, I'm not doing the day hike.
You don't need to do the day hike. Longest day of my life. I probably should have submitted that as a story because a girl in my group got helicoptered out.
No, did she get pulmonary edema?
She, long story short, we were going down we already summited. We're doing this as a 22-mile day hike or 21. And we reached the cable section. And she was behind me and she goes, oh no. And I'm like, uh-oh, what happened? She dislocated her knee. And we're 7 miles from the trailhead. But that's its own podcast episode. Woo! I don't want to take too much time bringing that up. But maybe I should have sent that to you. But learned a lot on that day. She got helicoptered out. Me and my friend had to hike in the dark for 5 hours. This is my first time doing Mount Whitney. Learned that when search and rescue or the helicopter comes, they're coming only for the injured party, not for anyone else. So that's very important to know, guys. I was like, no, please. And it's something to do with the weight and the safety of...
Yeah, it makes sense, but it's probably quite the shock if you've been with your friend waiting for multiple hours for those incredible volunteers to come.
Oh, Lord. And that's why you should always have your satellite device, your Garmin. The girl whose permit we were on, she was the one leading. Mm-hmm. She just bought her Garmin the week prior.
Oh, good.
So we were like, good job.
Yeah, I'm noticing a lot more people, especially women and other assigned female at birth hikers with like the little Garmins. I've noticed that more and more and more. Mine's one of the big ones that I don't think they sell as much anymore. It's like the Explorer Plus. I really like it. But that thing is amazing. Just to tell my wife like, hey, we're going to be a little bit longer. We decided to do this thing, hey, Maggie wanted to swim in the pond up at Mount Waterman, or hey, Maggie wanted to chase the chipmunk. No, she would never do that. I don't let her. But, did you hear your name? But,
Maggie's like, you guys gonna keep talking for how much longer?
Right, exactly.
Don't worry, we got a few more questions for Jaclyn. That's so awesome to hear that you really started to grow a strong affinity with our local mountains through the SoCal six-pack of peaks. That's such a life-changing challenge. It still blows my mind that we have high elevation peaks in LA County,
Yeah.
Southern California. I just thought that was something in like Utah or like Washington State or
Yeah.
like other outdoorsy
Denver,
state.
Colorado, like they have
50-14ers, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
People forget that we have the tallest mountain in the continental U.S. in California.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's incredible, and yeah, it's incredible that we have Mount Whitney and that you can get that experience of over 10,000 feet. Just and that's one of the dangers, right, of Mount Whitney is proximity makes you think you're safe. That's another issue with Mount Shasta. We've done my colleague Jack Dolan's done some reporting on that because it's just right off the 5, and there's this big like ice sheet on it that can cause some real issues. So, yeah, people mistake proximity for safety, unfortunately.
Yeah, the double-edged sword. It's accessible, but then it's accessible to a lot of other people. So the inexperienced try their hand at it without having the skill set or been trained enough. And then that's why there's so many search and rescues and deaths and all the tragedy.
Well, that's why in the Wild, I really try because I write the Wild, the weekly news, the Outdoors Weekly newsletter for the LA Times, and I really want to make hiking accessible, and I want to do that by empowering you to be safe, and so that's always my goal, is to explain to people, hey, if you're gonna do this in the summer, try to get there before this time, and and whatnot, because I'm trying to demystify it. It's not scary. It doesn't have to be scary. We're not out there like Cliffhanger and Sylvester Stallone.
Sure.
Like, we're not doing that, or I'm not doing that. But we're just trying to have a nice walk in the woods, or as I was saying, like some folks in Scotland call it hill walking. So. Yeah, I just really want people to feel like empowered to have a safe, good time outside, and to really be able to enjoy, a lot of these places are free to go to. And then, or you can get your like $5 adventure pass just to try it out. And so I just really want to empower people with the information to find something that will bring them joy. One of the features I've started in the Wild is a big format of the Wild is like 3 hikes for blah blah blah. So we'll do like 3 hikes to peep the pines and maybe snow, or 3 hikes that you can do in the desert or whatever. And I'm going to now do my best to have like an accessible alternative, because we really don't want to be ableist in the hiking community. And so I'm going to be trying to not only find more accessible hikes, but also just include them in my coverage. I have a dear friend who is my most avid Wild reader, and he's really highlighted for me. He is disabled and wants to be very much outside, and so he inspired me to add that feature, because there are a lot of great like county parks and like places like we've seen people walking here, where like there's obviously like a path people take around this park.
Yeah.
It's pretty flat, and so I really want to start looking for stuff like that too, because we just don't want hiking to look like it's supposed to mean a certain thing. Let's just keep it non-binary. Let's keep it open. Let's just be welcoming to everybody. That's my goal with the Wild. So yeah.
You gave me the perfect segue, because I was going to ask you, like, let's get into all your wondrous work over at the LA Times in the Wild, and you just touched upon it. You said the Wild is the LA Times dedicated outdoor newsletter. How long have you been writing for the Wild now?
Since July of last year. So Mary founded the Wilds and wrote it for years, and then she left the LA Times, and then after that we had a few different writers, including some great freelancers. My colleague and friend Lila Seidman did it for a bit. But yeah, so I took over in July. They needed somebody, and they looked up and they were like, "You really like hiking, Jaclyn?" I was like, "Sure do." And so they asked me if I would, I was sort of voluntold I was doing it, but I wasn't upset about it, because quite frankly I was really burned out of doing sad news all the time. I wrote about the mental health system for a long time, including a little bit here in LA County, and it's really hard work. I have written a lot about the intersection of the criminal justice system and the mental health system, and It's really frustrating to me, like when I write a story about someone who's been deeply mistreated in our county jail, and then suddenly like everything opens up for them and they get out of the jail and they get into a hospital and whatever, and it's just like, I'm really glad that person got what they constitutionally were required to be getting, right? But like it took a story, and there's like 5,000 more people who need the exact same story told, you know? And so it's just grueling work. I have a lot of colleagues who do amazing mental health coverage as well. But I was just so tired. And so this beat has been really good for my mental health, and it's also a new challenge. I was writing hard news for so many years, and so this has been a great time to flex my writing muscles and write in a voice and things like that, which has been really rewarding. And the features team at the LA Times is also just super duper talented and very welcoming and friendly. Just people with decades of experience. It's really fun, and we have nice bosses, and it's just a really nice time.
I gotta tell you, I look forward to you writing The Wild every week. You are exceptional
Oh my goodness.
because I remember there after Mary Forgione left, you all were going through a rotating cast of writers. It was like people writing for like 3 to 4 months at a time, and then I even saw Casey Schreiner, founder of Modern Hiker, was a writer, and then
Yeah.
a few other people, and then I started noticing like, oh, there's someone that's like regular now, and I was like, this person's really good. And
Thank you.
The Wild is just such a special part of the LA Times, and I look forward to that inbox, like the recommendations, the events, the stories that you put out there. It's very contextual, very intentional, and so thank you for all the work that you do there. I hope they keep you there as long as you're happy, as long
Yes.
as you can be there. Curious to know, you've written a lot of. If you're doing this weekly, you're writing a lot.
Yes.
So I'm curious to know, are you able to pinpoint like a specific story that you wrote for the LA Times, The Wild, that is either like a personal favorite for you or that greatly impacted you when you covered it? And you can take some time to process that because you've read it a lot.
I do write a lot, which is great and really fun. I I think the fun thing for me, and the thing that has had an impact, is I'm just always like zooming into the map to try to find things. Like I wrote about this place called Paiute Ponds, which is this place at Edwards Air Force Base where it's water that's treated from the water treatment plant and then piped back into these ponds, and there's just this like very robust bird population. It's in one of the main flyways for migrating birds as well. And it's just like in the middle of the desert. So you get like water, and you also get Joshua trees, which is like very cool. And that was just, it was really, I just love how you, at any moment when you're looking at the map in LA County, you can find something interesting, you know?
Absolutely.
And so that's been a great joy for me. One thing I hope to do this year is, I mentioned to you earlier, you know, the LA Times has been writing about hiking for decades. You know, we had the great hiking era in LA.
That's right.
You know,
Yes,
back
we
in
did.
the early 1900s. And so we were writing about that, right? And we had, and it's very like campy and charming how they used to write about it. But yeah, we've been writing about Ice House Canyon for 100 years, you know?
100 years
100 years.
coverage of Ice House Canyon.
Yes. And so
That's special.
yeah, and I love going into our archives. I always have. And so I really want to go into our archives and see about just different trails, different topics that really need to be revisited. And because I'm just interested in also highlighting like spaces like Paiute Ponds that maybe people don't know about. And it's like, and that's something you can drive up to, and then it's pretty flat and so easy walking. So yeah, I just really enjoy introducing people, and I really appreciate what you said about The Wild. I love writing it, and I just want like my joy to come, off the page, and just I want it to be welcoming, you know, and I hope, you know, some people like family back in Oklahoma read it and they're like, I feel like you take me on the hike with you, and that's like the biggest compliment, because I'm just like, you know, when you can transport people with your words is really special. And so I feel really lucky to be able to do that every week. And it is so it was funny. I used to have therapy at 10 a.m. and then the wild came out at 11. And so and that was when Mary was writing it. And so I would be in therapy, and then the minute I get out of therapy, I'm like, what has Mary written?
Oh,
you know?
wow.
And it was just like always such a treat. Like, and I really learned a lot from Mary, just about that like richness of LA County and really making it like practical, you know. I can get away with an essay every now and then, and I was really heartened with the feedback I got when I wrote about my brother and what drives me to hike. I heard from a bunch of other hikers who
That was your first piece.
yeah, who I wrote about that just like to introduce myself, and I heard from several people who hike as a means to process their grief, and just be with their thoughts, and you know, that was really meaningful that people read that. I was like, I'm a stranger in your inbox. So it's just been really fun to, you know, and meaningful for me. I went out to Devil's Punch Bowl,
Okay.
which is a county park on the other side of the mountains. And, you know, I did this hike called Devil's Chair. And, like, I had researched it, but I did not realize that the Devil's Chair was going to be this, like, overlook that's sort of like, is it Angel's Landing, you know, like that like it had those vibes because you're just like walking on this boulder with these like handholds of
Yes.
there's metal bars, and then you go out to this boulder, and I was there on election day, I'm pretty sure, by myself, just on this beautiful overlook looking out at like, you know, Devil's Punch Bowl, and I was just like, this is so cool. Like, I did not know this existed, and I'm very excited to tell people it exists, you know?
That's funny you brought that trail up specifically. That's been on my radar the past 2 months. I just haven't pulled the trigger.
You gotta go. It's so much fun.
I've heard from some local hiking friends in the community. They're like, oh yeah, that's one of my favorite trails.
Yeah, no, it's really neat. I called it one of the best overlooks in LA County, and I mean it, you know? And there's apparently like some secret rock climbing that one can do in Devil's Punch Bowl, but you know those rock climbers, they're like very secretive. I get it. Like, it's fine.
Yeah, they know the spots and they try to keep it that way.
They sure do. Yeah, that was another hike my friend and I did was Mount Hillier. You do like part of the Silver Moccasins Trail for that. And have you been? I don't know if you've been up there, but
I don't believe so.
yeah, it's really cool because it ends with these like massive boulders that you can like scramble along, and there were quite a few rock climbers out there like doing bouldering and stuff. And I was like, oh, this is the spot. Turns out. But that was another cool one where we didn't really see a lot of people, and it was just this little treasure in the woods.
In regards to the wild, for people who are newer, not as familiar, how can they sign up? Where can they go to get this in their inbox, this outdoor newsletter?
They can go to latimes.com/thewild, and it is free. So you do not have to be a subscriber to the LA Times to get it in your inbox. You will probably hit a paywall if you try to like read the links, but if you do subscribe and get it in your inbox, it'll be free to you. Obviously, we love when people can subscribe, but for some people, it's just not in their budget, and I totally respect that. So you can get the wild for free. Yeah, just latimes.com/thewild. No dashes or anything. Just easy peasy.
Awesome. Definitely subscribe. I've been a long-time subscriber now, a few years now, so you'll discover new places to explore, hear some really intimate stories of people in the community. Couldn't recommend it enough. And also you highlighted a lot of great community events so that people can meet other like-minded people, make some new friendships, build up their skill sets. So thank you for all that you do over at the LA Times in the Wild, and I hope they keep you there for a very long time.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I always try to be like real geographically diverse and diverse in the organizations that I'm promoting in the groups. We just have so many cool nonprofits who are doing really amazing stuff. And I haven't written about this yet, but there's so many hiking groups.
The SoCal hiking scene is massive.
It's amazing. And so I really love seeing like more hiking groups specifically for like Black and brown hikers and queer hikers, because you know, hiking has been so white for so long. And so that's one thing that I do love about social media is I feel like people are finding those hiking groups and able to meet friends and find community in those hiking groups that they otherwise would have been challenging. And so that is the reason they stay on Instagram, is like the community. That's how I learn about events, along with a few other sites. But that I think is just incredible to watch all those different affinity groups grow and really have a great time. And and then I've been invited to go out to the 5 a.m. hiking group. I don't know if I'm ever gonna make it, Omar.
Shout out to
sorry.
Omar.
He's so nice. Omar's the best. I don't think I can do it. I just love my bed.
It's a toughie, those sunrise hikes.
Have you been out there?
I've done a sunrise hike there, but I've yet to join the 5 a.m. Militia crew. There's always an army out there.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I love it.
It's Omar needs to get more sleep in case he's listening, but he works late as like a magician and then goes and hikes. It's amazing.
Such an interesting character.
Yeah.
She's built such a big community in
Yeah.
such a short amount of time. To go back to the hiking group scene, hiking group community in SoCal, the one thing when I first started hiking more often, I was like, oh, it's not vanilla out here. It's very brown, especially. So many Latin founding hiking groups and orgs, and then you have these other groups that are bringing African Americans out on the trail, all kinds of people, queer people, and it's like the diversity within the SoCal hiking scene is just like really impressive.
Yes.
And everyone's like much more organized now. They have like event links now. Like people are really like leveling up in terms of their organization skills and presenting the different offerings they do with their hiking group.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's one of the best things about not only living in LA, but hiking in LA, is it's diverse and you're going to meet a lot of really interesting people that you otherwise probably wouldn't have met, like out on the hiking trail, So that's another reason I love hiking out here is I do feel safe out here, as a queer person hiking. Even if I don't know that we necessarily agree, I hope and think that you're going to be respectful. I know that's not everyone's experience. I wish it were. But so far I've had a very positive experience hiking out here. Welcome to Just Trek After Dark.
All right, everyone. So after hours on the Just Trek podcast, we have been recording and there's not much light now. Sunset has set and now we're just going to share spooky stories.
Right, exactly. There's an owl now. The crows have been replaced by an owl.
It's a different vibe, a different setting at the moment.
Right.
But we'll survive out here.
We sure
we're in
will.
a peaceful park. Now there's literally going to be no one here. Just us two.
Us and the coyotes.
So the next thing I wanted to chat with you about is always on this show, I want for the listeners to discover new places that the guests have explored and also places that have deep meaning to them too. So I'm curious to know, Jaclyn, what would you say are your top 3 trails in SoCal at this very moment, and why is each your favorite?
Okay. Oh, so many are closed. I used to go to Cattle Canyon Trail a lot, which was instead of doing Bridge to Nowhere, you take the Cattle Canyon Trail, and there's like tons and tons of water crossings. I mean, there's several, and you can just pop off. Me and my friend have just like hopped in like a deeper little bit and swam around and stuff. So that was hard for me when it burned in the bridge fire because we've been there so much. It's just a great place to go with your dogs and hang out. So that was one of my favorites. I would say that I had replaced it with like hiking the Gabrielino Trail over by the NASA Jet Propulsion Lab. That's closed right now, but it should reopen because that did not burn. It's just part of the closure area for now. So once it reopens, it's great because it has a lot of parking, free parking, because you're on like either City of Pasadena or county land, and so you're not paying the adventure fee, and then you get into Angeles National Forest. But I'm always looking for spots with water. I really do love going to Vasquez Rocks. It's
So funny you mentioned that.
Because you guys, I know you're about to go, and like I just, when I first came here, I surprised my wife with like a trip out there because she is a very big fan of the show Roswell. Not the new iteration, but the first iteration of the show Roswell for like the sci-fi nerds like us out there. But And one of the iconic scenes of that show is they're up on the rock. And so I wanted to take her out there and surprise her. And so we'd been out there and we kind of like farted around and we didn't hike or anything. We were just like, oh, cool. We took pictures and left. And I did not realize just how many trails were out there. And then I was writing about it for The Wild, and I was like, this is a really fun place to explore because you have the really cool, like, iconic rocks, but you also have tons of other rocks, and you can really like scramble and jump around. And I love places like that in the desert. Like Red Rock Canyon State Park is like that too, north of Lancaster, I think, where it really brings out like our sense of play as adults. Like as I was hiking at Vasquez, I saw this guy just like jumping from like boulder to boulder and just having a great time, you know. And like we adults, like, sorry, but with capitalism, we have gotten away from play, and we really need that. So I love going out there. That's what I really enjoyed about Devil's Punch Bowl also. I really want to explore more of the Punch Bowl because I was just doing the Devil's Chair. Um, and then I would say one of my favorite hikes right now is to go up to Mount Hollywood on a full moon.
Ooh,
Because
great answer.
I do a lot of full moon hiking now. I had wanted to go up to Echo Mountain because that was another big spot people went to because you got to like really see the moonrise from there. Obviously, that will be closed for a while. Yeah, we often start over by the merry-go-round and then excuse me, and then we go up or like various routes to get to
Sure.
Mount Hollywood. But if people don't want to go to Mount Hollywood, they can also just go to Five Points. And if you're at Five Points for the moonrise, it's really cool because like one time for, I think it was around June, May or June is the strawberry moon. I only know because we had strawberry themed snacks on my hike because the snacks are important. And
Always. That's the only reason we hike.
why are you out there if you're not going to go eat pizza? So we go over this, we get up to Five Points, and as we're like cresting that hill, the moon is coming up at the same time. And we all just like audibly gasped. And we were just like, this is amazing. So I would say those are some of my favorites right now. But I'm always chasing water. I'll definitely be like out to Placerita Canyon,
Nice.
kind of near Acton-ish, because they have a waterfall that I'd like to see in the spring if we get enough rain. Because again, I'm just always for this lady right here, Maggie May. I'm always looking for ways that she can go swimming.
Of
And
course,
she's
of
almost
course.
12. She's got to get her water aerobics going on.
Water aerobics, I like that a lot. It's incredible how, especially after a big rainfall, how the Angeles National Forest comes alive. A local trekker told me one time, there's a scene of bagging peaks, but there's a whole nother scene in the Angeles National Forest of bagging hidden waterfalls and then discovering the streams all throughout the Angeles. And definitely in the summer, the Angeles is the place to be. Bathe in the streams right after your hike or before it, just to wake you up or for recovery.
Yes.
I'm definitely right there with you with that, with finding the water streams.
Yes, absolutely. There may or may not be things that don't go in the wild necessarily that I discover. So, things that I worry about the public knowing too much about, trying to just respect the spaces.
Absolutely.
I also I recently joined the SoCal Grotto group, which is a caving group.
SoCal Grotto group? I
Yeah.
never heard of that.
Yeah,
Okay,
they're
cool.
really nice. I told one of the leaders, like, you guys are my kind of weirdos. It's really cool. They'll teach you, like, you join for like 20 or 30 bucks for a year. And then there's quite a few people who do canyoneering in the group because LA specifically has more canyoneering opportunities than caving. Most of the caves you're going to go to, like, I went to my first cave with them. And it was an old mine, and so we were going inside these old mines, which is still interesting. But come back. There are coyotes out here.
Attracted to the light.
But yeah, that's another cool group. Which, if people have any interest in caves or canyoneering, that would be a great group to check out. Real eclectic, diverse group of people. I just had the best time when we went out to these caves. That I'm purposely not mentioning the location, but.
There's certain things we have to gatekeep a bit, due to...
Yeah, they say keep the West wild. And so like if you go to the group, they're very open with you about where it is and they'll take you places, but they really ask that you protect it on social media because people do tag the caves, and caves are like a special ecosystem. And if you leave like a Cheeto bag in the cave, like that is going to like harm specifically like that area, and it messes the whole thing up. And so even the caves we went to where they weren't super well known, there was still graffiti in the biggest cave. So yeah, and like not interesting graffiti either. You know, I can respect like well done graffiti. Some of that's in the Oroseko. There's a very cute cat that's been graffitied. Anyway,
I feel you. It's like, if we're gonna have eyesores, can they at least be like well-made
right,
eyesores? You know,
exactly, or like something meaningful to you. But like this was some silly stuff. So yeah, that's another group, and I've really been enjoying. I'm learning from them, and I'm looking forward to going on more of their trips once I get trained in like how to do vertical caving.
SoCal Grotto Group.
Yep, really cool. They meet at
Look them up, y'all.
Yeah, they meet at Caltech.
And you've clearly gained tons of knowledge being out in the wilderness and the great outdoors. And also on this show, I love for the listeners to learn some of the hiking hacks, maybe outdoor tips and tricks that have greatly helped our guests out. Are there any that you can share with us?
Yes, I have this compartment that I have written on duct tape, and it says, "Do not forget." And it is all the stuff that's like very important that I have forgotten before. So there's a compass in there. There's a water bowl for Maggie because not every hike has a river. There is my Garmin. There's my bivy, like my shelter that's for me and her both. And I have my signal mirror in there because, you know, as I mentioned, sometimes rescuers cannot see you. And so it's really good to have a signal mirror with you. Because if your Garmin is dead, then you can use that as well. So I would recommend like just having a thing. Maybe it's brightly colored, like a brightly colored little bag that you always put in your hiking bag. And it's the stuff that you truly don't want to forget. Because like, you know, I don't subscribe as much to the 10 essentials. I've subscribed to like this way of thinking that outdoor survival teacher Jesse Krebs teaches, and I've written about in the wild, where you really think practically about like what you need. And you're always going to need water, for example, you know, but like I don't need to bring like, if I'm going to Griffith Park, like I probably don't need to bring like my fire starter, you know, like because I'm not starting a campfire for any reason at Griffith Park, you know, like I don't need that. And so I leave all of that at home, you know, but I'm still going to bring my signal mirror because if someone's hurt and we do have to have a helicopter, then that will make it easier on them. So it's just thinking very practically. But there's stuff that you need. So that's definitely one hack I have. And then don't wear cotton.
I always, my newer friends that get into, you know, hiking with us, our group, you know, I'm always like, you gonna wear those jeans? You gonna wear that cotton shirt? They're like, yeah, why? I'm like, okay, you know, I get it's your first trek with us. You ideally don't want to wear the cotton. If you sweat a lot, it's not going to wick off. You know, don't wear the jeans because they may seem rugged, but you're going to shave and it's not going to be fun.
It's going to be a bad day, especially cotton socks. Do not wear cotton socks. Yeah, no, for sure. And then, you know, I do also, I have a lot of hacks for my dog, you know. She's older. She's on a CBD tincture. Really helps with joint pain. I take a lot of good care of her paws with Musher's Secret, which is this cream you can put on their paws. Really helps because that's one of the reasons dogs limp is because their paws hurt.
That makes sense.
Yeah, just like making sure she's got a little trail snack too as well. Yeah, I could probably do a whole podcast just about hacks and gadgets and different things, but that would be my biggest one that I've recently started doing is just having that one bag of stuff that you truly, and like maybe you have a chocolate bar in there. That's important, you know, like it's just the stuff you don't want to forget, you know. This is the survivalist stuff, but can also be like the joy things.
Hey, those joy things are very essential when you get to the top of the summit or at the end of the trek. You know, you're trying to feel happy about the day and reward yourself, you know?
Absolutely.
All right, so Jaclyn, thank you for sharing those hiking hacks, outdoor tips. And right now, y'all, since it's so dark, I'm using an extra phone to shine lights on my notes because I was squinting really hard and I looked like a fool. So if you're wondering what I'm doing over here, we have notes to keep us on track
Oh.
on the podcast. So the next topic I want to chat with you about is there was a recent newsletter you put out a few weeks ago, and I was really attracted to your desire to explore more of the Santa Monica Mountains, but specifically the majestic Backbone Trail, the 67-mile through hike that goes east to west through the Santa Monica Mountains, which is a transverse range. So in regards to that, how did this just thought come to fruition? Are there certain sections along the Backbone Trail that you're really interested in? I know the Santa Monica is rather well, especially certain sections of the Backbone Trail, so definitely want to chit chat with you about that a bit.
Absolutely. I love a well-maintained trail that is such a treasure like the Backbone Trail, and just it's just again, it's amazing to me the time and resources and money and volunteer hours that go into maintaining that. And I just have a lot of respect for the local hiking community and the National Park Service for making sure that that's so well taken care of. And I just think it'd be silly not to explore it more, So I am interested in any part of it. I recently talked to a colleague who is also an expert on it, and he gave me great tips on how to get started. I've never been to Sandstone Peak. I know.
Can I bring you at some point, please?
Sure, that would be fun.
I'll show you the nooks and crannies and all the several peaks and the hidden spots. Like, I would love to bring you out there at some point.
Yeah, that sounds fun. One of my best friends, Mish, they also love it and go out there often. And we have tried to coordinate, and it's like car trouble, life happens, it's too hot, all these different things. And
it is farther away too.
It is farther away, which just means you have to find a good meal after. But anyway, yeah. So I just. I think it would be, and I think one thing with all these fires that have taught me is like, you got to just do it because it might not be accessible. Like I was planning on doing the Gabrielino Trail this winter. I'm going to be writing about backpacking and how to get started backpacking just in your backyard here in LA, because we do have opportunities. And I'm so bummed that it probably can't be the Gabrielino Trail, which is like such a treasure that you get to start. You can start or end near Pasadena, near JPL, where I was talking about. You can start or end over at the Santa Anita Canyon, like where the Adams Pack Station is, and you can go all through the mountains, and it's incredible. It's not super long. It's just a very like accessible in terms of distance for someone who like wants to get into backpacking. And now it's closed, and so our big portion of it is closed. And so I just thought, part of the Backbone Trail was affected by the Palisades fire. There's some of it that's open. It would be silly not to get myself over there, even though it is a farther drive for me. Like, just suck it up and go, Like, it's just, we just don't know when these fires are going to happen. And so I'm just really trying to like explore places I've never been. And I can just listen to a good audiobook in the traffic on the way to the west side.
Or a good podcast.
A good podcast. I know one.
Yeah, I was greatly attracted when you mentioned that, and I can't wait for you to experience Sandstone Peak. I was actually out there for a hike and trail run with a previous podcast guest who was from the Philippines, and we could see Mount Baldy snow-capped all the way from the trails over there. And this was a few days after the big rainfall and the snow hit the San Gabriels, and that was the clearest I've ever seen it. I could see not only Mount Baldy and the surrounding snow-capped peaks, I could see the Channel Islands clearly, and I could see Catalina clearly on the same day.
Wow.
And I was literally like, it's so beautiful how sometimes you return to these trails and it's a different experience every time you go back to it. Like, I just fell in love with that whole, like, it's never the same when you go back. You're either with different people or something's different with the weather. Even if it's not the ideal weather, I would like to think we would like to show up for ourselves and just still appreciate Mother Nature for what it is on that given day.
Oh yeah, when I went to Cucamonga once, it was total cloud cover. I couldn't see a thing, but that was cool.
Yeah.
Because like I was up there above the clouds, And then I came back down, and people were like, "What was it like when I was like at Chipotle in Upland, where you got to stop, if you're going to the Mount Baldy area." Yeah, no, that's what the thing. That's why we go back to our favorites, is because it's always different. Have you ever seen a whale when you were hiking on that side of town?
I have seen whales. I forgot what month it was, but out in the Point Doom area
Oh,
in Malibu, and
cool.
also the Point Magoo Peak area because it's
Mm-hmm.
very close to the coastline.
Yeah.
So I'll be just looking out in the waves. I'm like, oh, there's dolphins. Oh, this is the migratory whale season. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
are you kidding me? Like the marine life just in and around like the coast. Like we're so spoiled out here.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I was just asking because right now in February is like the peak season for the gray whales. Hopefully the people who count them are seeing a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot going through the Santa Barbara Channel from Ventura Harbor all the way to Channel Islands National
Mm-hmm.
Park. All right, Jaclyn. So the next topic I want to traverse over to is how the current administration has slashed federal spending, which has led to the firing of 1,000 national park workers and hundreds of U.S. Forest Service workers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are your thoughts on the firings, and what are like the short-term and long-term repercussions we should be aware of from all this?
Yeah, so the Trump administration, through Elon Musk's Doge efforts, they're trying to cut what they say is wasteful spending, and part of that was about 1,000 permanent National Park Service workers. These were people who were still in their probationary period of their jobs. So some of them were new, but some of them had been with the Park Service for a long time, and they just recently changed jobs. And so, but these people, I mean, is there anyone more earnest than a Park Service worker? Like, I just feel like, and also the National Park Service is only 1/15 of 1% of our national budget. So some people have been asking if this is really the place that you want to be cutting. Is this really the place that we're going to find wasteful spending? Before this, advocates have said that the Park Service was already deeply underfunded. And so, what was interesting to me when I've been reporting on this, and I'll learn a lot more as the weeks go on, is the short-term effects are, when we go and apply for permits for campgrounds, we might notice that they're not posted yet on recreation.gov. We might notice that maybe the Mount Whitney lottery, I don't know, isn't as fast at getting back to us, that sort of thing. That's just an example. I don't know that will actually be a problem. But, in talking to experts, I heard like teachers are going to have a really hard time booking field trips. And, the layoffs were not only the public facing like park rangers, it was also, or the firings were not only like the public facing park work. This is talking about, you're talking about scientists, and you're talking about
Yes.
maintenance workers, and you're talking about admin people. I mean, so at every level, things are going to move more slowly. There's not as many hands to help with. And so, then you have the long-term effects when you cut the different people who are working on research. Like out at the Channel Islands, they've been monitoring the health of the tide pools and of the kelp forest since 1982. And now you only have 2 full-time workers, one who will be monitoring the tide pools and one who will be monitoring the kelp forest. They will get some seasonal help, but those folks, although I am certain are going to be really qualified. There's the coyotes.
Oh wow, you got a good ear.
No, oh, that's children. Just kidding. So it was like,
Coyotes, children. You know,
yeah,
same,
maybe
same
they're playing together. It's LA. But yeah, and so I'm really concerned about like that long-term impact because in our national parks we have some of the most endangered species. I was just at Death Valley National Park where you have the Devil's Hole pupfish, which is the rarest fish in the world. It lives in that one place in Devil's Hole, and they scuba dive to count it every year, and that's incredible to me. And I think that that kind of research is humanity trying to hang on to hope for these different species that are being affected by the human caused climate change. And so, and just overall like development and different things. And so I'm really concerned about how many people are going to be left to do the research that gives us that data to protect these really sensitive habitats. That was one of the scarier things to me, although it's all bad. And then another thing was when I was talking to the executive director of the Santa Monica Mountains Fund, she was telling me that she's really worried about the stability of their federal funding. And that's for a few reasons. For one, less support for the Park Service, and there could be just less money being given out. But one thing, and I wasn't able to get into this in my piece, I might write something separate on it, is there's all these attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And she was telling me that they've made that such a priority, and they are now having to determine, are they going to keep DEI in their language when they apply for federal contracts, because it feels very inauthentic to them to cut it, but then if they include it, will they not get the money? And will that do, and so that's just like this really horrific thing that I think especially like LA organizations are going to grapple with. She was talking about how they do a lot of work to make sure that kids of color are like getting great outdoor opportunities, and those are the kids that we want to become park rangers. And it's like with all these cuts, like it's just all there's just all these endless possibilities of how this could have an impact. And so I'll be covering a protest tomorrow, which will be a few weeks for your readers ago, but at the Santa Monica Mountains. And then a few days after that, I'm going to Ventura to cover a protest regarding the cuts at Channel Islands. So Santa Monica Mountains lost about 8 staffers, Channel Islands lost 6. Those are not huge teams, so that's a lot of people.
That's what I was going to say, like all these people that are being laid off and fired, these places are already so severely understaffed. Like even if like 2 or 3 are gone, it's like that's a huge difference in how they manage what they do.
Yeah, and you're losing institutional knowledge. Like I was when I went to Kings Canyon for a piece, which was incredible, but I was interviewing the person who is like the lead manager of their bear population, and she knew so much about the individual bears that go into their campgrounds, and she knew number such and such does this, and number such and such had these babies, and they have a bad habit of this, and so they're gonna have to, and like if you lay a person off like that, then you lose that decade of knowledge of your local animals. And does that put those animals at more risk because people don't know their behaviors, Like, it's just, there's so many ripple effects that this could have with the loss of those permanent workers. The Trump administration had said they were going to rescind all these seasonal worker jobs, and that was taken back, although TBD on whether all of the seasonal workers end up getting their jobs back. It's really bizarre. The people I talked to said that they really haven't seen this in another administration, Democrat or Republican, and that the parks really haven't been seen as a place. It's a very bipartisan topic.
No, I agree. It's if there's one thing especially that really can be bipartisan amongst both parties is like this great love and deep appreciation for nature and the national parks and these wondrous landscapes that bring so much joy and healing to millions upon millions of people. Doesn't matter what your belief is.
Exactly. And it can really be a melting pot. You never know who's going to show up on a tour bus, and it's like we all just try to, coexist, I hope, the best we can when we're at the parks. But yeah, it's just mind-boggling that this has been. Not to say that I'm a transgender American, so I have obviously felt the effects of other policies, and I don't think that that's really valid either. I'd like to just exist and mind my own business and hike around the mountains and have a good time, but it's very surprising that the Park Service and National Forest is being attacked. I need to follow up with Angeles National Forest to see if they've had any cuts, because they don't have a lot of staff either.
They've been severely understaffed for years
and very underfunded.
Correct,
considering more people go there than to Yosemite.
Yeah, the East Fork alone, that's its own topic
Yes,
of
yes.
debate.
Yeah, no, that's a topic to talk to Nathan Nunez about, who's done great work in that arena.
Oh,
But
is that the Canyon EP or the East Fork preservation person?
no, he and his family are indigenous to Angeles National Forest and know exactly where the village is, where they came from. And he's gotten really involved, he and his dad, in speaking up for that area.
I know you're talking about. I think he's associated with one of them, or he founded one of those.
Yeah, yes, I think the Canyon one
The
actually.
Canyon
He's
EP,
yeah.
yeah.
He's just like this 24, 25-year-old kid who's just incredible. I really admire what he's been doing, because we really got to treat every fork of that river with the respect that it deserves. But yeah, the park stuff is surprising, and I don't think it's over.
It is a, it's a strange time right now. It's a dark time, as it's literally dark. And there's what you just mentioned. There's several protests that are activating this upcoming weekend, not just in like all over the U.S. Right? Different
Yes.
states are like. I think there's like about 17 protests. I think the
There's
Instagram.
there's 15 in California tomorrow.
50, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I think I saw the Instagram handle I started following, Resistance Rangers.
Yeah, the Resistance Rangers.
Yeah, I love that name.
I do too. I mean, obviously, like everyone's thinking Rescue Rangers. But yeah, no, they're trying to get a protest at all 400, and I think it's 433 of the federal lands they're trying to get protest at. And I saw the spreadsheet because they've sent it to media, and there are just dozens of protests across America planned for tomorrow, which is Saturday, March 1st. Pay the rent.
Wow, tomorrow's my mom's birthday too.
Oh, uh-oh.
Good thing I sent something, a
Yeah,
little
there you
package
go.
already ahead of
Good
time.
job.
Good job, son. Oh my God, tomorrow's March.
Yeah, tomorrow's March.
Oh Lord,
Yep.
time is yeah. I mean, January felt like eternity, but February's gone already.
It sure did. Yeah, maybe because it wasn't terrible.
Thank you for sharing your insights and thoughts. I know that was also what you covered in the recent newsletter of the Wild. What's going to happen with our parks. You're expressing your thoughts about Channel Islands, especially National Park, the Santa Monica Mountains. A lot of people don't realize that the Santa Monica Mountains is not only the largest urban national park in the country, but in the world.
Yeah.
Like
No,
it is a
it's-
truly majestic place, especially if you go on the more remote parts of the backbone trail, like the western edge of the Santa Monica Mountains.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the organizations, the National Park Service workers, they have all been working so hard to repair the trails after the Woolsey fire. You know that the folks are going to be working really hard after the Palisades fire. But, as I reported, the wildfire recovery funds were the last to return after the Trump administration also froze trillions of dollars, and that affected the Santa Monica Mountains Fund. They couldn't access any of their federal dollars.
I read that, yeah,
they're
saw
only
that.
at like a $3 million budget, and a lot of that's federal money. And the last money they were able to get when it was supposed to be unfrozen was from this bipartisan law that Congress had passed under the Biden administration. And that was for wildfire recovery. And you're just like, we just had the Palisades fire, the Woolsey fire, we still needed a lot of work there. And to think that our wildfire recovery money could be threatened, I mean, that's a head scratcher, to say the least.
I was just on Martin Luther King weekend. I volunteered at the Samo Fund National Park Service event to restore the native plants on the hillside and make seed bombs. Never done something like that, by the way. I felt very nervous, but I loved it. It was really fun too. And just when I started reading that, I was like, oh, this was something that I was directly got to see. And this is something that is being directly affected. The native seed farms, the nurseries,
Yeah.
the restoration efforts. I'm like, oh, wow, this is hitting really close to home.
Yes. Yeah, the seed farms were very much threatened by that funding freeze. They would have just had to close them.
Yeah, this is its own topic that is, I'm sure we'll be learning more about and hoping for the best for the next several
Yeah,
several months,
I
rest
will
of the year.
definitely keep following it. Absolutely. This is something we got to watch closely.
All right, so I got one more question for you, and then the rapid fire questions, and then we'll get out of this darkness, get away from the coyotes. So I'm super excited to ask you this last question. If there was one hiking or outdoor experience you could relive all over again,
Ooh,
what would that be for you, Jaclyn?
jumping off Muir Rock into the river at Kings Canyon. I was at Kings Canyon National Park for work, and I was like, oh, I gotta go look at Muir Rock, just like get a sense of it so I can write about it. And there were these, turns out, park workers who were off work, just hanging out. And one of them said to me, jumping off Muir Rock is one of the top 10 things you have to do in Kings Canyon National Park. And like, I'm a features journalist. I'm here to write about Kings Canyon. If you tell me that this is one of the top things I have to do, and so I was like, okay. And so I looked down and I'm like, it's safe. And they're like, yes, it is safe. We've done it like 4 times since we were here. And so a bunch of us, someone held my phone and a bunch of us just jumped at the same time. And it was so much fun. The water was at least 12 feet deep.
Okay.
It was deep, yeah. Like I would say 10 to 12. And the river, it wasn't bad. Like you could just kind of swim along with it. And it was just amazing. I mean, it was so beautiful and clear. I jumped twice. I had a great time. Those park workers, I hope they all still have their jobs. They were so sweet. Some of them I know were seasonal, so I hope they get to come back because they were all great folks. Told me various things about the park. Yeah, that was just such a magical experience, especially as like a trans person in a national park, and they were also accepting and everything, and it was just really special. That I definitely will be doing again someday when my wife and I have kids and they're old enough to do the same thing.
All right, duly noted, mental note. That'll be on my trek agenda. I've never been to Kings Canyon
Oh my
yet.
God, it's amazing. Yeah,
That's
no,
awesome.
and only jump off Muir Rock if you can swim. It's all safe. Disclaimer, please don't sue me. Be very careful.
All right, so guess what?
What?
It's time for the rapid fire question section.
Bum, bum, bum.
Blah, 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 blah. So the way it works, there's 2 rounds for this one. There's a outdoor focused one and
Okay.
a personal one.
Okay.
So just answer with 1-word answers or short and concise answers. So we're gonna go with round 1. You ready?
Yep,
You ready, rock steady?
I'm ready to rock.
Steady.
Steady.
There we go. All right. First question. Favorite trail snack?
These watermelon gummy treats that you can get at Target, and they're plant-based.
Ooh. Trail runners or hiking boots?
Hiking boots. I'm too klutzy for trail runners.
Desert or deserted island?
Desert.
Waterfalls or lakes?
Here, waterfalls.
Dawn or dusk?
Ooh, it's gonna have to be dusk because I'm not gonna get up for dawn.
Sorry, 5 a.m. crew.
Sorry.
Mountain lions or grizzly bears?
I do want to. What you said, grizzly bear?
I say grizzly bears.
Oh, it's gonna be a mountain lion then.
Music artist you want to hike with?
You asked an impossible question.
I know.
Okay.
I know that's a hard one for a lot of people. We can circle back to it too.
No, I'm just overwhelmed. I love music, and I'm like, Reba McEntire and Beyonce and the Spice Girls.
Ooh, Spice Girls,
Wouldn't
hell
the Spice
yeah.
Girls be fun?
That would be lit.
I know.
Spicy Mountain Girls.
Right, exactly. And Paul should be like, are we done yet?
Favorite wildlife to observe at this moment?
Ooh, I am getting really into birding, and I think yellow warblers are really cute.
National park you want to visit that you have not already?
That would be Arches, and there's like the 5 national parks. Like you can drive to one in about 5.5 hours. I want to say maybe Arches or Bryce Canyon and do like a whole like loop of them. But I really would like to go to Arches and just explore more of like Utah as well.
Arches for the record. In 1 word, how does hiking make you feel?
Free.
What's your ideal outside temperature? Who's out there? Who's ruining the rapid fire question section? Show your face.
Or just your reflective eyes.
What, I don't even remember what the question is. Oh, what's your ideal outside temperature?
Ooh, This temperature right now, I love when it's, I would say like hiking when it's like 55 degrees is really great, especially for Maggie because she's got a thick coat. But also just because like you're not going to be cold if it's not windy. So especially for like up in the mountains, I would say if it's going to get at the coldest, 55 is great.
Very specific answer. Love it.
I'm in Oklahoma and we take weather seriously.
All right, that concludes round one. This is where we take a water break for 15 seconds.
Okay, I got it.
To do my sipping.
Wonderful. Maggie's okay.
Wow, the clouds today have been really special, even
Yeah.
back on the west side. Like, even when I woke up, I was like, it's a good day for cloud spotting.
Yeah, no, we don't always have clouds here. This is nice.
All right, round two. You ready?
I'm ready.
You ready, rock steady?
Rock steady.
You ready, rock steady? Favorite comfort food?
Favorite comfort food? Pizza or Magpie's ice cream?
Favorite cartoon show growing up?
I really loved reading Hank the Cowdog, which is like a cartoon.
Never heard of it.
It's great.
Nice.
But, Matthew McConaughey, I know he's complicated, but he is the actor for Hank, for a Hank the Cowdog podcast. If you just want something wholesome to listen to, it's great.
What genre or type of music gets you dancing the most right now?
Oh, all of it. But what am I listening to? I always go blank. I would say pop, rock, hip hop, anything joyful. This is a longer answer, I'm sorry, but
Nope,
I
it's
always
cool.
pride myself on Spotify Wrapped when it's like, you've listened to 80 genres this year, because I love listening to all kinds of stuff. Oh, John Batiste. I love John Batiste. Like, his albums make me dance.
Jean Baptiste, for the record, app you're currently using the most besides Instagram?
And besides Alt Trails, I use Peak Finder a lot.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Because I'm
Yeah.
like, what is that? Or someone else is like, I love when I'm sitting having my like lunch at like the lookout point and there's those strangers and they're like, oh, what are those peaks over there? And I just like to walk over and just hand them my phone with the app on and they're like, whoa! And it's just so fun to blow their minds.
And it's just the best, like, when you're in the car and you're passing by these
Yes.
mountain ranges, and they're like, oh, that looks cool. I'm like, oh, yeah, I've been up there. Oh, you have? Yeah, that's Cucamonga Peak. That's Mount Wilson. They're like, wait, you can go up there? And you're just like, yeah.
Yeah, or you're in the car, like if my wife's driving and I pull it out because I'm like, what's this peak? I want to go there.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Everyone download Peak Finder. Or,
Yes.
no, Peak Visor?
Peak Finder, yep. I use Peak Finder. There's
Okay,
others.
yeah. Favorite superhero?
I'd say the Hulk.
The Hulk, for the record. If you could be any animal, what would you be?
Probably a blue whale.
Ooh, you're on the whale vibe.
I love whales.
If you could travel back in time, what period would you go to?
Ooh, let's see.
It also can be like a period of time that you weren't living in.
I don't know. It'd be cool to live in a castle, like, medieval times, but without all the disease.
Yes, thanks for the context on that too.
If I could, like, bring a satchel of vaccines for me and my friends.
Oh my God. A satchel of vaccines. Describe yourself in 3 words.
Let's see. Kind, I hope.
That's
Silly.
3 words already.
Yeah, kind, I
Kind,
hope.
okay, kind, and then go ahead.
Kind, silly, skeptical.
And here's the final question of the rapid fire question section. You ready?
I'm ready.
Favorite sound?
The chirping, croaking of like frogs when you're like by a river or a pond. But these crickets right now are also doing it for me.
I've never gotten that answer. The chirping
I grew up by water.
of the
so
frogs, yeah.
Love
like
it.
that.
You can go to like anywhere along the Arroyo Seco if you're there at night. The frogs and the toads start going off. It's fantastic.
I like that answer a lot. All right, so that wraps up the rapid fire question section. You survived.
Here we go.
And now we're at the end of the episode, but always before I conclude it, I turn the spotlight back to the guests. Jaclyn, do you have any final words or thoughts you want to share with the outdoor community or just the listeners in general? The floor is yours.
I hope that folks know that I love hearing from them. I love hearing feedback from people. I'm always open to constructive criticism. I'd love to know more about where your favorite spots are, and anything you'd love to see in the wild. But most of all, I just hope that, you are able to find the joy that, you and I have been able to find out in the mountains. And I just hope that people can find their happy place out there. They can find somewhere that they feel really safe, just being exactly who they are.
And where can we keep up to date with you on your adventures? You got a website, any social media you want to plug right now?
As I mentioned, I'm a little offline right now, but I fart around a little on Instagram. It's just Jac in the wild.la. That's probably where I'm most active. My editor would like me to use Blue Sky. We'll see.
All right. Thank you so much, Jaclyn. It's been such an honor to have an outdoor reporter have that unique perspective and just a fellow SoCal trekker that knows so much about the different trails and peaks we have here and parks and just an in-depth knowledge of the land and the layout with all the agencies involved and the nonprofits. Like, you're a very special person to have on the show.
Thank you so much. I really love what you're doing. Like I said, just building community. And I know that it means a lot to a lot of people. So I'm just glad to be here and get to be a little part of it.
All right, y'all. That concludes another episode of the Just Trek podcast. Jaclyn Cosgrove, LA Times The Wild, outdoor reporter. Just Trek podcast. Elevation is our recreation, and we are out. You probably cannot see us, so that's how we're gonna end it.
Woohoo!
Yeah. All right.